Alright, you beautiful people, thank you for tuning in. Today's video, we're going to be talking about a modern day build for the Starfire protocol. And no, you're not going to be throwing out 12 grenades per damage phase like beforehand. These days, we got to use a Starfire in a different manner. Rather than throwing grenades to reload our rockets, we're going to be throwing grenades to give ourselves a damage buff. That way our elemental weapons are doing more damage. One thing I want to let you guys know about is that this setup is relatively flexible with one minor caveat. The good thing is there's a few ways to go about doing this, but you are locked to running solar weapons, which is the really only downfall of it. However, you can use this setup for some easy brain dead damage, and you can use instant gaming for making brain dead decisions on where you should buy your games from and their DLC, because instant gaming is the best place to be for getting your games DLC for a cheaper price. Top link in the description if you want your games for a cheaper price. And no, I'm not saying this is the best solar warlock build or anything like that. I'm not saying it's the best boss baking warlock build, because I still believe that the strand warlock build is the just best build for outright damage output, at least for warlocks. However, you have to put a little bit of effort into outputting all that damage with the Strand Warlock setup. Whereas for this, you can go full brain dead easy mode. Or if you want to, because you're a cracked out gamer like that, then you can add in some swaps and rotation as well. With that being said, let's start breaking down the new aged Starfire Protocol Warlock build. Now with the damage buff. Now, since your fragments aren't going to be changing that much, let's go over them first. Can't believe we're talking about Starfire setup in Season 22, but here we are. Empowering Rift, Celestial Fire, Fusion Grenade, Icarus Dash, Touch of Flame. For damage phases, this is your new important fragment, Ember of Benevolence. Whenever you cast your well, you and your homies are standing inside of it. Guess what you're doing with that well? You're giving them restoration. So, because of that, you are getting increased grenade, melee, and class ability regen for a short duration. That's very, very important, because these days we're not using the Starfire to really spam out grenades during damage phases. To help keep us alive a bit, we got our Ember of Resolve, good old classic tried and true. Of course, if you want to, you can always put on Ember of Mercy over something like Ember of Ashes, but you would have to keep on your Ember of Searing to get that restoration from fire sprites. As fire sprites just by themselves, whenever you pick them up, they grant you a little bit of extra grenade energy, which does help, especially with modern day Starfire. Another fragment worth mentioning could be Ember of Blistering if you are using it for ad clearing in a specific situation, as you'll be creating a lot of ignitions. Now, for the mods and armor for a mobbing situation, if you are not really having to worry too much on doing boss damage, you can definitely slap on a recoup, even in invigoration if you want to. Definitely put on a firepower on your gauntlets. If you don't like throwing like a limp dick, definitely put on fastball. And then I just have on some momentum transfer on my gloves as well to help get our Celestial Fire back a little bit quicker whenever we cause damage with the grenade, which with fusion grenades and Ember of Ashes will be pretty often. Also, don't forget an Ashes to Assets mod on your helmet for generating your well back. Have at least one Ashes to Assets helmet mod so you can get your well radiance back at a quicker pace. And then if you want to go with a Siphon mod, a Heavy Ammo Finder mod, or another Ashes to Assets mod on your helmet, feel free to go right ahead as well. And then since we're going to be getting so many empowering rifts just because of how Starfire behaves, running Bomber this day and age after the nerf is actually not that bad of an idea, as reducing grenade cooldown when using your class ability will happen pretty often. Then I just have on an outreach mod to help us get our melee back once again a little bit quicker through popping our rifts, which with Starfire you'll be popping imp rifts so often. These are my weapons of choice for when I'm not having to worry about doing any sort of boss damage. I'm really just having to worry about doing some good crowd control and holding it down. These are the weapons I'm going to use. Sunshot, we all know at this point, is amazing after the hand cannon buff. Your special doesn't matter too much if you just want to run something to deal with some healthier majors. I just have a recombination heritage. Our heavy weapon for clearing out ads is just going to be a machine gun with incandescent. I love fixed odds. Pretty self-explanatory there. And now real quick, we'll go ahead and take a look at the boss damage setup. For the mods, look, my man, your boots, very important that you have triple solar surge, okay? And I mean solar surge, because we're going to be using solar weapons for doing some good damage. We also have on a time dilation, along with a special finisher. Those are the only real armor changes. Heavy ammo finder on the helmet, nothing too crazy over here. Now our weapons are going to be where we can have a little bit of fun and creativity outside of being locked to solar weapons. For this, we are going to be using double special. That is why we have a special finisher mod. I have a trace rifle on for in between damage phases. However, the actual archetype of the trace rifle doesn't matter. I just have it in cases here for an example. Ideally, however, what you want to do for a damage phase, there's a few things you can go about doing. Since I'm going to recommend a bipod rocket launcher, an Apex Predator is what we're going to need. Reconstruction and bipod. Because an Apex Predator with reconstruction and bipod is going to give you some juicy ammo. We're holding 4 rockets in the magazine right now. Meaning, what you could do, open up your damage phase with 4 rockets and then go into some sort of swap rotation while reconstruction reloads your rocket launcher. Just for example, I have a double sniper rotation here. And if you're wondering why our elemental weapons have to be solar, it's because of the artifact. Monochromatic Maestro is a mod in the 5th column for this season's artifact, to where when you're dealing elemental ability damage, that's going to increase your matching weapon damage. AKA, since we're on a solar subclass, throwing our fusion grenades or using our celestial fire is going to give us an increase to our solar weapons. Elemental weapon damage increases matching ability damage, so that just synergizes perfect with our solar weapons. We do damage with our solar abilities, our solar weapons get a bonus 10% damage. We shoot one of those solar weapons, our solar abilities are going to be getting 10% increased damage as well. So just by doing the loop, we're doing more damage with our rocket and energy slot and our grenades. The best part is that this actually stacks with your surges. You may notice in some of the clips that we have solar damage times 4. That is because of Monochromatic Maestro. And if I'm not mistaken, times 4 surge is 34% additional damage. That's 12% more than 22%, which is pretty nasty. That's why having solar weapons are so important here. Since our Starfire is going to give us 2 fusion grenade charges, and since we have Ember of Ashes, we can basically set it to where we never ever have Monochromatic Maestro fall off at all during our damage phase, because the score stacks from the fusion grenade keep reprocking monochromatic, which is really freaking useful. So you could open up a damage phase by throwing a grenade to trigger your mono. 1, 2, 3, 4 rockets. Swap to Izzy. Swap to your sniper. This doesn't proc 4 times, just little thing right here, nor does it like tell if we have like a scorch stack up or anything, so it's a little bit difficult to tell exactly when to throw like another grenade or proc another ability, but you kind of get the idea of the rotation. You wouldn't reload, you would just literally go right back to your Izzy, snipe, grenade, you know, reproc your mono. That's just a rough idea of a rotation you could do with a bipod rocket launcher if you wanted. You could also put on something like an Aramite, a Cartesian. I wouldn't recommend a grenade launcher for a bipod roll. That's more of a bait and switch type of setup. But if you wanted to with bipod, you could totally just go brain dead mode and just rocket, 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 reload. Obviously, you'll have a little timer on the left that says whether or not mono's actually proccing, so you know when to actually throw in another grenade or ability. And you can definitely in most situations get off almost all of your rockets if you so choose to go that route. You're not locked, you have a lot of options. You could also go the old school route, put on a Wither Horde as well, there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe try a Kinetic Tremor Supremacy also. But that's the breakdown. Now I gotta swim because I had to talk a lot. And there you go. All of the footage you're seeing, we didn't even have a debuff. And I'm also pretty sure for most of the footage, we didn't even have a galley up. Just to give you a rough idea of how the base damage can be. Once again, not saying it's insane, groundbreaking. That still goes to the strand setup. But if you're a warlock going into day 1, you find yourself on well, which, come on now. That's going to be like 99.99% of warlocks. Then feel free to opt into the Starfire build with a bipod Apex Predator and Monochromatic Maestro. Their extra fusion grenade charge really helps keep Monochromatic Maestro up throughout the entire damage phase. And when you have 3 matching surges, it'll give you the ×4 for a 34% buff. You could also use something like a Wither Horde fusion rifle and a bait and switch Apex Predator, but there's a lot more going on there with that. Let me know if you think Starfire is back on the menu. Thank you for watching the video. Consider subscribing. You guys be safe, and we'll see you in the next one.